Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Great Gritty, your final show of tonight. And this show happened when I was the right level of inebriation to see a tweet on Twitter where somebody had just searched and replaced The Great Gatsby, the F. Scott Fitzgerald novel, with Gritty. And Highwire submissions were live that night, and it just became oh so easy to pull that up on another tab and submit this show. So I'm so excited with the way this turned out, the way every piece did, and the incredible cast tonight. I'm not going to give you anything more than that so that you can enjoy the show. And I present to you possibly the greatest piece of art that I've ever done in my life up to this point, The Great Gritty.
A black screen. The blackness is pierced by a single pulsing green light. We drift, as if by boat, across a dark bay toward the light. Then we hear a troubled voice. Nick wanders slowly towards a window, remembering.
Hold on a second. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice. Always try to see the best in people, he would say. As a consequence, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments, but even I have a limit. But then, all of us drank too much. The more in tune with the times we were, the more we drank, and none of us contributed anything new. When I came back from Philly, I was disgusted with everyone and everything. Only one man was exempt from my disgust. Gritty. He was the single most hopeful person I'd ever met, and I'm ever likely to meet again. There was something about him, a sensitivity. He was like one of those machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away.
Dissolved to exterior, Nick's bungalow, day.
I rented a house 20 miles from the city. I planned to spend the summer studying, and I probably would have.
A woman's shriek startles him on the neighboring beach. A group of revelers are frolicking. A scantily clad girl waves and then disappears into the trees, drawing Nick's eye to his neighbor's house.
Were it not for the riotous amusements that beckoned from beyond the walls of that colossal castle?
Through dense foliage, Nick spies the mysterious spires and towering of the neighboring Gothic folly.
Owned by a gentleman I had not yet met, named Gritty. The history of summer really began the night I drove to my cousin Fanatics for dinner. She lived across the bay.
Swoop across the bay towards exterior Buchanan Mansion, late afternoon. An impressive Georgian mansion overlooks a quarter-mile of lawn that cascades down to a private polo field.
In Old Money, East Egg.
Bring, bring! We hear a phone ringing off screen. Follow a polo player, Tom, as he gallops towards the house.
Her husband was heir to one of America's wealthiest families.
Bring, bring! Tom whacks the polo ball.
His name was Tom Buchanan.
The ball nearly hits one of Tom's gardeners.
When we were at Yale together, he'd been a sporting star.
Bring, bring! Tom dismounts and bounds up the stairs to the porch.
But now his glory days were behind him, and he contented himself with other affairs.
Tom aggressively grabs the phone from Henri, the butler, and turns, revealing an imposing, hard-mouthed man of 30.
I thought I told you not to call me here.
Interior Buchanan Mansion, salon, late afternoon. A shimmering, sun-dazzled room in which enormous white curtains whip and snap in the breeze. Boom! As the French doors shut and the curtains fall, a beautiful white hand rises from behind the couch, and with it a low, thrilling voice.
Oh, Nicky, is that you, my lovely?
Suddenly, 23-year-old Fanatic appears from over the back of the couch. Close on. Fanatic. Captivating.
Fanatic Buchanan, the golden girl. A breathless warmth flowed from her, a a promise that there was no one else in the world she so wanted to see.
She whispers dramatically.
Do they miss me in Chicago?
Oh, yes. About a dozen people send their love.
How gorgeous.
They're screaming, they're shouting, "Fanatic Buchanan, we can't live without you."
I'm paralyzed with happiness.
Fanatic takes Nick's hand and squeals with childish glee as she drags him over the sofa and onto his back on the floor. He stares up, and a mysterious athletic girl glares back. This is 22-year-old Jordan Baker.
Jordan Baker, a very famous golfer.
She was the most frightening person I'd ever seen. I've seen your face on the cover of Sporting Life, but I enjoyed looking at her.
I've been lying on that sofa for as long as I can remember.
Fanatic turns to Nick with scandalous delight.
I know! This summer I'll sort of fling you and Jordan together. I'll push you into linen closets and out to sea in boats.
I'm not listening a word.
Nick, Fanatic tells me you're over in West Egg, throwing your lot in with those social climbing primitive new money types.
Oh, my little shack is a cardboard box at $80 a month.
Your life is adorable.
I know somebody in West Egg.
I don't know a single person.
Jordan turns dramatically.
Oh, you must know Gritty.
Fanatic, a sharp intake of breath.
Pretty?
Close on Fanatic as she struggles to control rising emotion.
What? Gritty?
Before anyone can reply, Tom announces,
Dinner served.
dissolved to exterior Buchanan Mansion terrace night. Fanatic, Nick, Jordan, and Tom sit at a long, sumptuously laid table. Food, wine, laughter, smoking.
It's been proved. It's scientific.
We've got to beat them down.
Suddenly, bring the telephone, all freeze. Another ring. Bring!
Excuse me, I'll be right back.
He goes inside. An embarrassed moment. Suddenly, Fanatic throws her napkin down.
I'm sorry.
She follows Tom into the house. Nick, at a loss, turns to Jordan.
Well, this Mr. Gritty you spoke of is my neighbor.
Don't talk. I want to hear what happens.
Is something happening?
I thought everybody knew.
I don't.
Tom's got some woman in Philly.
Got some woman?
She might have the decency not to telephone at dinner time, don't you think?
Almost before Nick has grasped her meaning, the doors bang open and Fanatic returns to talk with Nick.
I just love seeing you at my table, Nikki. You remind me of a rose, an absolute rose.
I'm not even faintly like a rose.
Oh, Nikki.
What?
It's just, well, you see, I think everything's terrible anyhow. You know, I've been everywhere and seen everything and done everything, and I've had a very bad time, Nikki. I'm pretty cynical about everything.
Fanatic gazes melancholic across the bay. An awkward silence. Nick tries to change the subject.
Your daughter, I suppose she talks and eats and everything?
Pammy? Oh, yes.
Fanatic gazes down toward the dock, where a green light glows in the velvet dusk.
Listen, Nick, when she was born, Tom was God knows where and with God knows whom. And I asked the nurse if it was a boy or a girl. She told me it was a girl, and I wept. All right, I said. I'm glad it's a girl, and I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. A beautiful little fool.
She breaks off and looks at Nick with that smile of hers.
All the bright, precious things fade so fast.
As a sad, sweet underscore plays, we push out over the water and across the bay toward Gritty's castle.
And they don't come back.
Exterior Nick's bungalow night. Nick gets out of his car. He stops. Through the trees, he can see the man gazing intently across the bay.
When I arrived home, I noticed that a figure emerged on my neighbor's dock, and something told me it was Gritty. He seemed to be reaching towards something out there in the dark.
A green light on dock pulses in the distant darkness. Exterior Nick's bungalow, porch morning. Nick is still asleep. Harsh morning light.
I awoke with a distinctly uneasy feeling.
A sudden feeling of disquiet makes Nick look up.
That Gritty was watching me. In fact, I know now that Gritty was always watching me because I got an invitation. I was the only one.
Fade in image. An immaculate chauffeur in uniform of robin's egg blue stands on Nick's doorstep holding a silver tray on which rests an invitation. The words written on the invitation, "Dear Mr. Carraway, the honor would be entirely mine if you would attend my little party."
No one except me ever received an actual invitation to Gritty's. A line of limousines stretches from the lights of Manhattan toward Gritty's gates. You see, the rest of Philly simply came uninvited. The whole city packed into automobiles all weekend. Every weekend ended up at Gritty's. And I mean everyone, from every walk of life, from every corner of Philadelphia. This kaleidoscopic carnival spilled through Gritty's door.
A bizarre mix of characters surged toward light at the end of this dark, vaulting, vomitorium-like passageway. Bang! Doors burst open. The dazzling spectacle of the grand ballroom. Champagne fountains vault to the ceiling. Overwhelmed and out of place, Nick approaches the bar.
Do you know where I might find the host, Mr. Gritty? I live just next door.
The bartender Mr. Gritty, I've never seen him, sir. Why, no one has. The bartender automatically hands Nick a martini.
Alone and a little embarrassed, I decided to get roaring drunk.
He downs the martini in one gulp, steps over an even drunker guest who collapses at his feet. Startled, Nick turns to find Jordan Baker.
I remembered you lived next door.
It's like an amusement park. Did you get an invitation?
People aren't invited to Gritty's.
Well, I was. I seem to be the only one. Who is this Gritty?
Oh, Gritty. Should I lead you into his clutches?
Bang! Nick and Jordan explode into a dark room. A stout, middle-aged man wheels to them with unsettling intensity.
Well,
You won't find him. This house and everything in it are all part of an elaborate disguise. But Gritty doesn't exist.
Philly. I've met him.
Which one? The prince, the spy, the murderer? I've been wandering his halls drunk for about a week now. But no matter where I look, I can't find anyone who knows anything real about Gritty.
Well, I don't care. He gives big parties, and I like parties. They're so intimate. At small parties, there isn't any privacy.
But if that's true, what's all this for?
That, my dear fellow, is the question.
On cue, a drinks tray floats into the frame. Nick, disoriented and empty-handed, begins up the stairs, and as he does so, hears the voice of the man holding the tray.
Your face is familiar. Weren't you in the 3rd Division during the war?
Yeah, the 9th Battalion.
I was in the 7th. I knew I'd seen you somewhere before. Having a good time, old sport?
The whole thing's incredible. I live next door. He even sent me an invitation, but I still haven't met Gritty. No one's met him. They say he's 3rd cousin to the Kaiser and 2nd cousin to the devil.
At the landing, halfway up the steps, the man takes a drink from a waiter's tray and hands it to Nick.
I'm afraid I'm not a very good host, old sport. You see, I'm gritty.
The delirious opening chords of Tostov's history coincide with a gorgeous explosion of fireworks in the night sky.
I thought you knew, old sport.
Grizzly smiles a dazzling smile. Sound fades to a serene hum.
His smile was one of those rare smiles that you may come across 4 or 5 times in life. It seemed to understand you and believe in you, just as you would like to be understood and believed in.
I'm trying out my new hydroplane in the morning. Want to go with me, old sport?
Nick shakes himself from his reverie.
What time?
Anytime that suits you.
Gritty turns and catches for the first time Jordan.
Lovely to see you, Miss Baker.
He kisses her lightly on the hand.
If you need anything, just ask for it, old sport. I will see you later. Excuse me.
As Nick watches Gritty walk away, he whispers with amazement.
I expected him to be...
Old and fat?
Well, yes, young men don't just drift coolly out of nowhere and buy a palace on Long Island.
Interior Gritty's castle tower. High up in the window, the shadowy figure of Gritty stands, phone pressed to his ear, watching Nick leave. After a moment, he raises his hand in a formal farewell.
We rode in the hydroplane, and I attended 2 more of his parties, even made use of his beach, but I soon realized that I knew absolutely nothing about Gritty at all until...
Exterior Nick's bungalow. Gritty's yellow Duesenberg hurdles up Nick's drive and skids to a stop. Gritty leaps out.
It's pretty, isn't it, old sport? Haven't you seen it before? It's all a custom job. Supercharged engine. Get dressed. We're having lunch.
Slam cut to Gritty's car, Long Island countryside day. The Duesenberg whips and winds along a tree-lined road. Gritty, beyond nervous, drives with reckless intensity.
Look here, old sport. What's your opinion of me, anyhow?
My opinion?
Yes, your opinion.
Gritty yanks the wheel. Nick hangs on for dear life.
I don't want you to get me wrong impression from all those bizarre accusations you must be hearing. A pack of lies, I assure you. You've heard the stories. I'll tell you God's truth. God's truth myself. I am a son of some very wealthy people from the Middle West, sadly all dead now. I was brought up in America, but educated at Oxford because all of my ancestors have been educated there for many years. You see, it's a family tradition.
The way he spoke, no wonder people thought he was lying.
Then came the war, old sport.
Just when I thought it couldn't be any more fantastical, he became a war hero, single-handedly defeating the German army.
I was promoted to major, and every allied government gave me decorations, even Montenegro, little Montenegro down in the Adriatic Sea.
Slam! A medal is suddenly in Nick's lap.
Yeah, that's the one from Montenegro. Turn it.
Mayor J. Gritty, for valor, extraordinary.
I thought you ought to know something about my life. I don't want you to think I'm just some nobody. You see, old sport, I'm going to make a very big request of you today.
A big request?
Yes, Miss Baker will explain everything when you take her to tea this afternoon.
A shrieking police siren. Before Gritty can continue, a motorcycle cop pulls alongside.
Pull over to the curb.
All right, old sport, all right.
Without slowing, Gritty takes a card from his pocket.
Right you are. Know you next time, Gritty. Excuse me.
The cop peels off.
I didn't know what to think. Anything can happen now, I thought. Anything at all.
As the orchestra builds, Gritty's car shoots into Manhattan.
Even Gritty could happen.
Bam! A fat beat kicks in as we explode through a grate into exterior, the Hotel Sayre, rooftop garden, dusk. Jordan is perched at an elegant table.
What game are you and Gritty playing at? What is this big request?
Nick, he just wants you to invite Fanatic to tea.
Tea? Fanatic and Gritty?
Well, I don't quite know where to start. You see, I met Gritty 5 years ago in Louisville. Fanatic was by far the most popular girl with the officers from Camp Taylor. One of them was in the car with her. It was Gritty. And the way he looked at her is the way all girls want to be looked at.
So what happened?
Gritty was sent off to war. But when the war ended for some unknown reason, Gritty couldn't return. A year later, Tom Buchanan of Chicago swept in and stole her away. But the morning of the wedding, Fanatic received a letter.
What was in the letter?
I don't know. She wouldn't tell me.
It's a strange coincidence, isn't it? Gritty's house just being right across the bay?
No, it's no coincidence. He bought that house to be near her. He threw all those parties hoping she'd wander in one night. He constantly asked about Fanatic. I was just the first person who knew her.
Nick takes this in as if seeing Gritty for the first time.
All that for a girl he hasn't seen in 5 years, and now he just wants me to have her for tea? The modesty of it.
Kind of takes your breath away, doesn't it?
Dissolve to exterior dirt track to Nick's bungalow, night. Gritty appears striding through the illuminated trees toward Nick.
Your place looks like the World's Fair or Coney Island.
Does it? I've been glancing into some rooms. Let's go to Coney Island, old sport. We can take my car.
It's too late tonight.
Or we can take a plunge in the swimming pool. I haven't used it all summer.
I must go to bed.
Gritty looks crestfallen. Nick puts him out of his misery.
Happy to do it, Gritty. I'm going to call Fanatic and invite her to tea. Day after tomorrow, all right?
Day after tomorrow? Well, I'd want to get the grass cut. Good night.
Good night.
With this, Gritty turns and strolls back toward his blazing castle. Nick's gaze falls upon the unkempt lawn. He smiles. Interior Nick's bungalow, living room, day. The room is crowded with absurdly extravagant floral arrangements. Nick sits watching as Gritty intensely paces. The silence stretches and stretches. Finally,
Have you got everything you need?
Perhaps more flowers.
You think it's too much?
I think it's what you want.
I think so too. She'll be impressed, won't she, old sport?
I am.
with this, Gritty straightens his suit, sits, and hurriedly checks his watch. Another long silence. Gritty suddenly, he leaps to his feet.
I can't wait all day. I'm leaving.
Don't be silly. It's just 2 minutes to 4.
Beep! Gritty glimpses Fanatic's Rolls Royce arriving out front and turns to Nick, flushed with fresh panic.
It's her.
Fanatic enters the living room.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Did you ransack a greenhouse?
Then she turns, sees Gritty, sharp and take a breath. The reunited lovers stand, staring at each other for a long, surreal moment of disbelief. Gritty, eyes locked to Fanatic's, is drowning in emotion. Fanatic finally manages an artificial, choking murmur.
I'm certainly glad to see you again.
Gritty's face is flushed. Veins stand out on his neck as his lips spasm in a hopeless attempt to speak. Finally, he finds words.
I'm certainly glad to see you as well.
We haven't met for many years.
5 years next November.
I just need to pop into town.
Town?
The village. I'll be right back.
As Nick leaves, Gritty follows.
I've got to speak with you.
Wildly following Nick, Gritty whispers miserably.
Oh God, this has been a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake.
You're just embarrassed, that's all. Fanatic's embarrassed too.
She's embarrassed.
Just as much as you are.
Don't talk so loud.
You're acting like a little boy. You're rude. Fanatic's in there all alone and...
Gritty raises his hand, looks at Nick reproachfully, and heads back to the living room. Interior Nick's bungalow living room day. Later, Nick re-enters, bedraggled, rain-soaked. He tries to get Gritty and Fanatic's attention to no avail. The lovers are completely and totally absorbed in each other. He clears his throat.
It stopped raining.
Fanatic turns a radiant smile. Every vestige of embarrassment between Fanatic and Gritty is gone. Gritty literally glows.
Yes, it has.
He stands, walks to the window, and looks out across the bay.
I'd like to show her around.
Are you sure you want me to come?
Absolutely, old sport, absolutely.
Exterior, Gritty's castle, front gates day. Reveal Gritty's castle glistening in the sunlight. Close on Fanatic, a delighted cry.
Oh, Jay, it's so grand.
Do you like it?
I love it. But how do you live here all alone?
I don't know. I keep it always full of interesting and celebrated people.
Interior, Gritty's castle, Gritty's bedroom evening. Nick and Fanatic follow Gritty into the bedroom. Gritty bounds ahead, starting up a spiral stair. He throws open a massive cabinet, revealing a prism of suits, dressing gowns, watches, and ties.
I've got a man in England who buys me clothes. Something for the lady.
Then he begins yanking down shirts and tossing them over the rail to Fanatic.
I've never seen anything like it.
Close on Fanatic. Time slows as shirts flutter like giant snowflakes down toward her. Slowly, quietly, her mirth transformed to sobs. She hides her face in shirts. Gritty eases down the stairs and nestles beside Fanatic, taking her tear-streaked face in his hands.
What is it?
It makes me sad because...
A suspended moment. Fanatic is incapable of speaking her heart.
5 lost years struggled on Fanatic's lips, but all she could manage was...
It's just because I've never seen such beautiful shirts before.
If it wasn't for the mist, we could see the green light.
What green light?
The one that burns all night at the end of your dock.
As Gritty and Fanatic stare out across the bay.
Possibly it had occurred to Gritty that the colossal significance of that light had vanished forever. Now it was once again just a green light on a dock. His count of enchanted objects had diminished by 1.
Gritty hastily plucks a scrapbook from a row on his desk.
I want to show you something. Look here. A lot of clippings about you.
They admire the scrapbook together.
You saved my letters.
This was my first photo of you.
As Fanatic flips through and pulls out an old letter of hers, we hear her reading the letter in abstract voiceover.
We can't lose each other and let all this glorious love into nothing. Come home. I'll be here waiting and hoping for every long dream of you to come true. Come home, Gritty.
Bring! The phone shrills.
Excuse me.
Gritty crosses the room, snatches up the receiver, and turns away.
Well, he's no use to us in Detroit. If Detroit is his idea of a small town.
Gritty rings off abruptly and catches Nick's eye, a tense moment, which Gritty banishes with that electrifying smile. We hear the distant, jaunty sounds of a pipe organ.
Ah, Kidspringer, you must be awake, shall we?
Interior, Gritty's castle grand ballroom night. Hundreds of candles flicker in patterns. as a slow, melancholic waltz plays. Gritty and Fanatic dance, enraptured.
I wish I had done everything on earth with you. All my life.
Gritty holds her closer.
I wish that it could always be like this.
It will be.
If only it had been enough for Gritty just to hold Fanatic, but he had a grand vision for his life, and Fanatic's part in it.
Cut to days later. Discover Gritty leading Tom, Fanatic, and Nick to the top of the terrace stairs. Exterior, Gritty's castle, terrace dance floor, night.
We've got a great band here. Have a look around. Excuse me.
A lot of these newly rich people are just filthy bootleggers.
Not Gritty, he's a businessman.
A businessman.
These things excite me so.
Gritty, so besotted with Fanatic that he cannot take his eyes off her. A romantic foxtrot strikes up. Gritty turns to Tom and gestures to Fanatic.
Mr. Buchanan, would you mind terribly if I take her?
Tom does indeed. Looks like he minds, but a group of scantily clad girls who cavort gracelessly on the other side of the garden momentarily catch his eye.
Of course not. I think I can keep myself amused.
As Fanatic takes Gritty's arm, she tucks a slim gold pencilito into Tom's breast pocket and murmurs,
In case you need to take down any addresses.
as Tom fumes, Gritty leads Fanatic out onto the dance floor.
Is all this made entirely from your own imagination?
No. You see, you were there all along, in every idea, in every decision. Of course, if anything is not to your liking, we can change it.
It's perfect. From your perfect, irresistible imagination.
Exterior, Nick's bungalow, magic tree night. Fanatic runs ahead, playfully hurrying past the low-hanging branches of the massive tree. She disappears inside. Gritty follows, but upon entering the secluded starlit world, sees no sign of Fanatic. Then, from out of the shadows, the sparkle of jewels. Gritty turns, and Fanatic's lips suddenly find his. A long, still kiss.
I wish we could just run away.
Run away, darling. No, Fanatic, that wouldn't be respectable. We're going to live here in this house together, you and me, Fanatic. It's time for you to tell Tom.
Exterior, Gatsby's castle, bar night. Nick in a moment of extreme tension with Tom.
What a circus. Well, if you see my wife, I'll be looking for her. You tell her.
Exterior, Nick's bungalow, magic tree night. The hidden letters speak in intense hushed tones.
Remember how much fun we used to have? Why can't we just have fun like that again?
Gritty, frustrated, is about to speak, but Nick suddenly appears out of the shadows. Gritty and Fanatic break off, startled.
Oh, hello, Nikki. We're having a row.
What about?
Fanatic glides towards him.
About things? About the future?
Well, it's Tom. He's wandering around the party looking for you.
Fanatic flashes Gritty an over-the-shoulder glance when suddenly a servant appears with a phone for Gritty. A tiny ruffled moment, then Gritty elegantly guides Fanatic towards Nick.
Excuse me, Nick, would you mind?
As Gritty follows the servant back toward the castle. Exterior, Gritty's castle, front gate night. Discover Fanatic's face through the limo window. Her forlorn eyes search for Gritty behind castle walls.
Where were you?
With Nikki. Mr. Gritty was showing us the grounds.
Well, he certainly must have strained himself getting that menagerie together.
Dissolved to exterior, Gritty's castle pool night. It is late. Agitated and intense, Gritty paces by the pool, staring out to the green light pulsing across the bay. Nick descends the stairs, drunk.
Oh, there you are. Fanatic just left. But she asked me to tell you she had a wonderful time.
She didn't like it.
Of course she did.
No, she didn't like it. She didn't have a good time. I feel so far away from her now. It's hard to make her understand.
You mean about the party?
The party! I couldn't care less about parties. You see, she has to tell Tom that she never loved him.
What?
Then we can go back to Louisville, to her parents' house. Her parents are lovely people, old sport. We'll be married there. You see, Fanatic and I are going to start over, just as if it was 5 years ago.
I wouldn't ask too much of her.
Gritty grows suddenly, strangely emotional. He turns his back to Nick to compose himself.
I beg your pardon, old sport. It's just so sad because it's so hard to make her understand.
Gritty, you can't repeat the past.
Can't repeat the past?
No.
Why, of course you can. Of course you can. You'll see, I'm going to fix things just the way they were before. Everything's been so confused.
Gritty looks out to the green light.
If I could just get back to the start. If I could just get back to the start, I could find it again.
5 years ago, Gritty found himself at Fanatic's house by colossal accident.
I went to her house first with some of the other officers of Camp Taylor. I'd never been in such a beautiful house before.
But his uniform is the truth. That he was a penniless young man with only that grand vision of himself.
I always knew that I could climb, but I could only climb if I climbed alone. I knew that when I kissed this girl, I would be forever wed to her. So I stopped and I waited and I waited. I waited for a moment longer.
He knew that if he kissed this girl, his mind would never again be free to romp like the mind of God, that falling in love would change his destiny.
And then I just let myself go. I knew it was a great mistake for a man like me to fall in love. A great mistake. I'm only 32. I might still be a great man if I could only forget that I once lost Fanatic. But my life, old sport, my life has got to be like this. It's got to keep going. She has to go to Tom and tell him she never loved her. I need to give her more time. I just need to give her more time. Don't worry, old sport. Don't worry. I can protect her here. Good night, old sport.
Gritty heads for his castle and turns and calls.
You're wrong about the past, old sport.
After Tom and Fanatic's visit, there were no more parties. Fanatic visited discreetly, but the very same fame that had once been a source of satisfaction to Gritty became a threat.
Interior Gritty's castle, bedroom night. Locked away deep in the castle, Gritty and Fanatic make love. Close on Fanatic. She turns to Gritty and whispers.
I don't want to go home.
Gritty holds her tighter.
Then don't.
Dissolved to interior Gritty's castle ballroom late afternoon. We hear a phone conversation between Nick and Gritty. An unshaven Gritty in trousers and a black silk robe sits in a large armchair under a vast wall of magnificent paintings.
I've been meaning to call you up. I'm sorry. I've been so busy.
Is everything all right?
Yes, Fanatic and I are very much in love.
I hear you fired all your servants?
Fanatic comes over sometimes in the afternoons, and I wanted some people who wouldn't gossip until we decided that we're going to do... Nick, Fanatic's ready. She's ready. But there's just one thing. She's requested that you and Miss Baker be there at lunch tomorrow at her house. Will you come, old sport? Fanatic needs you. We need you. Will you come, old sport?
Dissolved to interior Buchanan mansion. Dining room day.
You know, I read somewhere the sun's getting hotter every year.
Fanatic grips a wine glass in her trembling hand. Her eyes are terrified. Perspiration forms on her upper lip. She glances to Gritty, who stares resolutely from across the table.
I'd like to be out on that bay today.
I'm right across from you. Right there.
So you are.
Gritty slowly stands and walks behind Fanatic.
Every night I can see you, that light at the end of your dock blinking.
What light?
Gritty gently moves his hand over Fanatic's.
You see, Mr. Buchanan, I wanted to be closer. Fanatic and I.
With sudden intensity, Fanatic stands.
It's so hot. Everything's so confused. What'll we do with ourselves this afternoon? And the day after that? And for the next 30 years? Let's all go to town. Who wants to go to town?
Town? Women, they get these notions.
Gritty walks to Fanatic in that moment. Their eyes tenderly meet.
Fanatic.
You look so cool. You always look so cool. Like the advertisement of the man in Times Square. The man in the cool, beautiful shirts.
She'd told Gritty that she loved him, and Tom had seen.
Suddenly, Tom explodes.
Let's go to town. I'm perfectly willing. That's a marvelous idea.
Just like that? Can't anyone at least have a cigarette?
We've smoked all through lunch.
Oh, let's have fun. It's too hot to fuss.
Will you join us, Mr. Gritty?
Slam cut to interior Plaza Hotel. Sweet day. Crack, crack, crack. Shards of ice split off from a hunk as a bellboy makes ice cube.
That's enough.
The room is large and stiflingly hot. It has been filled with huge ice buckets in an attempt to cool it. Gritty, Tom, Nick, Fanatic, and Jordan are bathed in a thin sheen of perspiration.
Open another window.
There aren't any more.
Then telephone for an axe.
Forget about the heat. You'll make it worse by crabbing about it.
Why not let her alone, old sport?
It's a great expression of yours, isn't it?
What is?
Old sport. Where'd you pick it up?
I'll make you a drink, Tom, then you won't seem so stupid to yourself.
Wait a minute. I want to ask Mr. Gritty one more question.
Go on, please, Mr. Buchanan, go on.
What kind of row are you trying to cause in my house, anyhow?
They are out in the open at last, and Gritty is content.
He isn't causing a row. You're causing a row. Please have a little self-control.
Self-control. I suppose the latest thing is to sit back and let Mr. Nobody from nowhere make love to your wife. Well, if that's the idea, you can count me out. See, nowadays people begin by sneering at family life and family institutions. But next you'll know they'll throw everything overboard.
Your wife doesn't love you. She's never loved you. She loves me.
You must be crazy.
No, old sport. She never loved you. She only married you because I was poor and she was tired of waiting. It was a terrible, terrible mistake. But in her heart, she never loved anyone but me.
We should go.
Fanatic and I have nothing to hide.
Gritty, let's go. Please. Please.
Sit down, Fanatic.
Yes, Fanatic, please sit down now.
What's been going on? I want to hear all about it.
I just told you what's been going on. It's been going on for 5 years.
You've been seeing him for 5 years?
Not seeing, no, we couldn't. But both of us loved each other. All that time, old sport. You didn't know. I used to laugh sometimes to think that you didn't know.
Oh, that's all. You're crazy. I can't speak about what happened 5 years ago because I didn't know Fanatic then, but I'll be damned if I see how you got within a mile of her unless you brought the groceries to the back door. But all the rest of that's a goddamn lie. Fanatic loved me when she married me, and she loves me now.
No.
She does, though. And what's more, I love Fanatic too. Once in a while, I go off on a spree, but I always come back. And in my heart, I love her all the time.
You're revolting. Do you know why we left Chicago? I'm surprised they didn't treat you to the story of that little spree.
Gritty walks over and stands beside Fanatic.
That's all over now. Just tell him the truth, that you never loved him. And all this pain will be wiped out forever.
Why, how could I love him, possibly?
You never loved him.
Fanatic hesitates. Too late. She realizes what she is doing.
I never loved him.
That's right.
Not at Kapiolani?
No.
Not that day I carried you from the punch bowl to keep your shoes dry? Fanatic? Never?
Please don't.
Fanatic.
There, Gritty.
He trembles as she looks to Gritty.
You want too much. I love you now. Isn't that enough? I can't help what's past. I did love him once, but I loved you too.
You loved me too?
Even that's a lie. She didn't know you were alive. These are things between Fanatic and me, and you'll never know. Things that neither of us can ever forget.
The words seem to bite physically into Gritty.
I want to speak with Fanatic alone. She's all excited now.
Even alone, I can't say I never loved Tom. It wouldn't be true.
Of course it wouldn't.
Fanatic turns to her husband.
As if it mattered to you.
Of course it matters. I'm going to take better care of you from now on.
You're not going to take care of her anymore. Fanatic's leaving you.
Nonsense.
I am, though.
She's not leaving me, and certainly not for a common swindler. Mr. Gritty, what exactly are you, anyhow? Fanatic, can't you see who this guy is with his house and his parties and his fancy clothes? He's a gangster.
The only respectable thing about you, old sport, is your money. That's it. And now I've had as much as you, so that means we're equal.
Tom smiles with smug, condescending scorn.
Oh, no, we're different. I am. They are. She is. We're all different from you. We were born different. It's in our blood. And nothing you do or say or steal or dream up can ever change that. And a girl like Fanatic will never.
Gritty explodes with terrifying rage.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Shock jolts the room. We float toward Gritty. His rage-filled eyes stare into the void, as with all his willpower, he restrains himself from ripping Tom apart.
Gritty looked in that moment as if he had killed a man.
Tom snorts a dismissive laugh.
That's right, Mr. Gritty. Show us those fine Oxford manners.
Gritty recovers and turns to Fanatic, who is trembling in the corner, on the verge of tears.
My sincerest apologies. I've seemed to forget my temper.
Struggling for self-control, Gritty turns toward her as if Tom suddenly no longer exists.
Fanatic, darling. None of this has any consequences. Don't listen to him, Fanatic. We're going to go back to Louisville to be married. There, we're going to live together in our house.
There is a feeling of excruciating unease in the room.
He began talking excitedly, denying everything, But with every word, Fanatic was drawing further and further into herself, until only the dead dream fought on.
Please, Tom. I can't stand this anymore.
Fanatic is staring, terrified. Courage gone. She looks to Tom.
You two start on home. In Mr. Gritty's car.
Fanatic is alarmed now.
Go on, he won't annoy you. I think he realizes his little flirtation is over.
Fanatic, hysterical, runs from the room. Gritty pursues her.
Fanatic.
Fanatic and Gritty are gone. A terrible silence fills the room. Tom begins wrapping the unopened whiskey bottle in the towel.
Want any of this, Jordan? Nick?
What?
Want any?
No, I just remembered. Today's my birthday. I'm 30.
Oh, happy birthday.
The formidable stroke of 30 died away as Gritty and Fanatic drove on through the cooling twilight towards death.
Exterior, Wilson's garage, twilight. Standing outside his restaurant, the owner, McCallus, sees Myrtle, Tom's lover, rush out of the garage shouting hysterical.
Stop, Tom, please. Stop.
Suddenly, Myrtle appears in the headlights of Gritty's car.
No!
But the car strikes Myrtle. Slow motion. Terrible. Nightmarish. Expressionistic images. Glass shattering. Blood spattering. Fanatic screaming. Myrtle's body flying through the air. Her pearls showering the night like 1,000 new stars. Her torn open body hits the ground. Interior, Wilson's garage, night. A crush of gawking spectators speak in hushed tones. Cut to Tom pushing through the crowd. A policeman stands next to Tom, taking down names.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step away.
Get off me. I'm fine.
You knew her?
No, not really.
Well then, I'll have to ask you to step back.
What happened here?
She ran out in the road. Son of a bitch didn't even stop his car.
I saw it. It was a yellow car, big yellow car. Cut to Tom, a slow realization. The well-dressed man notices his reaction. Who owns the yellow car?
Fella named Gritty. He's a crook. Gives those parties the papers are always talking about. Gritty. Something ought to be done about a fella like that. He'll pay. Oh, he'll pay. The goddamn coward didn't even stop his car.
Exterior, Buchanan Mansion, night. As Nick's feet crunch upon the white gravel of the drive, he is startled by a voice from the shadows.
Hello, old sport.
Cautiously, Nick approaches the hedge. The closer he gets, the more certain he becomes. Gritty is hiding just below Fanatic's window. His pace quickens.
What are you doing?
Just sitting here.
Yes, I can see that.
Did you see any trouble out on the road?
Trouble? That woman you ran down is dead, Gritty.
I thought so. I told Fanatic I thought so.
Fanatic? Do you hear yourself?
It's better that the shock should come all at once.
What's wrong with you? How could you?
Please keep your voice down, old sport.
Tom was right. You're nothing but a goddamn coward.
Keep your voice down. There was no point in stopping.
No point?
It killed her instantly.
Yeah, I was there. I saw. It ripped her open.
Panicked, Gritty grabs Nick, trying to explain.
Understand, it wasn't my fault. This woman rushed out as if she wanted to speak to us. It all happened so quickly. I tried to turn the wheel.
She?
Close on, Nick, a realization.
It was Fanatic?
Finally and very slowly, Gritty admits.
You see, after we left Philly, she was very nervous. She thought driving would steady her, but this woman, she just rushed out at us. It all happened so quickly. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't my fault. I should have taken the wheel. No one must know. Promise me. No one promise me.
Gritty, you shouldn't be here. You should get out of here.
No. I'm going to wait. I'll wait all night if necessary. You see, Fanatic's locked herself in her room. She's going to turn her lights off and on again if he tries to bother her about that unpleasantness this afternoon. If he tries any brutality whatsoever.
Tom won't touch her. He's not even thinking about her.
Oh, I don't trust him, old sport. I don't trust him.
Gritty, you ought to go away. They'll trace your car.
Go away. I can't leave now, not tonight.
Do you understand that a woman's been killed?
Fanatic's going to call in the morning. Then we'll make plans to go away together.
But Gritty, she...
Sensing Nick's tone, Gritty cuts him off and banishes all doubt with intense certainty.
She just needs time to think. She'll call in the morning. She just needs time to think.
Gritty smiles that smile of endless possibility. He turns to go in, but stops.
It was also that night that I became aware of Gritty's extraordinary gift for hope, a gift that I have never found in any other person, and which is not likely I shall ever find again.
I thought out my life with Fanatic in it, trying to figure out how we could marry and struggle along with so many dollars a month.
What was in the letter?
Gritty reaches the end of the wharf and looks to the green light across the bay.
The truth? The reason why after the war I hadn't been able to return?
In the clouds overhead, the image of Fanatic in the bathtub with the dissolving letter. And now we can see what Gritty wrote in that fateful last letter. Fanatic, the truth is, I'm penniless.
I asked her to wait until I made something of myself, but she was young. There was so much pressure. You see, I felt married to her, that was all.
It had all been for her. The house, the parties, everything.
Exterior Gritty's castle terrace, morning. Nick and Gritty are finishing breakfast.
I'm gonna drain the pool today, Gritty.
Not today, it's so beautiful. You know, old sport, I never used that pool all summer. Let's go for a swim. I'll have the phone transferred to the pool.
As Gritty heads towards the pool, Nick checks his watch.
Gritty, I've got to go. I have to work.
I understand. Well, I'll walk you out.
I'll call you up.
Do, old sport, please do. I suppose Fanatic will call too.
I suppose so. Well, goodbye.
Nick lingers. Then they shake hands and he starts away. Just before he reaches the hedge, he turns and calls back.
They're a rotten crowd. You're worth a whole damn bunch together.
First, Gritty nods politely, and then his face breaks into that radiant and understanding smile.
I was always glad I had said that. It was the only compliment I ever paid him. That morning, Wall Street boomed, its usual golden roar. But I wasn't worth a decent stroke of work. I waited for Gritty to call with news.
Exterior Gritty's castle, pool day. Gritty heads to the pool, ready to swim.
While he waited for the Fanatic.
Splash! Gritty dives gracefully into the pool. We see Gritty from below, body gliding through clear water. A man enters. A gun dangles from his hand. Gritty's head breaks the smooth green surface of the water. Suddenly, bring! The phone rings. Gritty smiles and gazes across toward the green light, toward Fanatic. The crack of a gunshot. Close on, Gritty. A moment of strangled, startled wonder. His lips form a final, breathless.
Fanatic.
Then his face hardens as he slowly falls backwards. Splash. Gritty's body descends through a cloud of blood. Interior, Probity Trust Building, Nick's office, continuous. A silent image of Nick screaming into the phone.
After all these years, I remember the rest of that day, and that night, and the next day, as an endless drill of police and photographers and tabloid reporters.
Interior, Buchanan Mansion, portico day. Top shot, servants carry endless luggage through the hall, down the stairs and out the front door. Ring! A phone rings off screen. At the bottom of the stairs, discover Fanatic and Pammy.
Just for a little trip. Just you, me, and Daddy.
Ring! Tom appears beside Fanatic.
We should go.
Ring! Henri, a servant, answers the phone. It's Nick.
May I speak to Mrs. Buchanan?
Madame is not available.
Well, when you see her, will you tell her the funeral's tomorrow?
Henri looks down to Tom, who shoots a "we're not here" look.
I'm sorry, but they have gone away.
Gone away? Do you know when they'll be back?
No.
Please, I know she would want to be there. If you could just get a message to her.
I have no further information, monsieur. Au revoir.
Click. Henri abruptly hangs up. The Buchanan family exits. Interior, Gritty's castle, grand ballroom, continuous. As Nick slowly, bitterly hangs up the telephone.
They were careless people, Tom and Fanatic. They smashed up things and people, and then they retreated back into their money and their vast carelessness. I rang, I wrote, I implored, but not a single one of the sparkling hundreds who had enjoyed his hospitality all summer attended the funeral. And from Fanatic, not even a flower. I was all he had, the only one who cared. After Gritty's death, Philly was haunted for me. I remember how we'd all come to Gritty's and guessed at his corruption, while he had stood before us, concealing an incorruptible dream.
Nick remembers Gritty and Fanatic together on the dance floor. Fanatic leans in and whispers happily to Gritty.
It's perfect. From your perfect, irresistible imagination.
Dissolved to exterior, Gritty's castle, wharf, night. Nick, drunk, stumbles along the dock, the rain falling steadily now.
The moon rose higher, and as I stood there brooding on the old, unknown world, I thought of Gritty's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Fanatic's dock. He'd come such a long way.
And suddenly, shimmering ghostly through the rain, Gritty's silhouette can be seen once more, gazing out across the bay.
And his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it.
Gritty turns back toward Nick and smiles.
He did not know that it was already behind him. Gritty believed in the green light, the orgasmic future that year by year recedes before us.
Push past Gritty, out over the water, toward the green light eternally pulsing at the end of Fanatic's dock.
It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster.
Gritty reaches out.
Stretch out our arms farther, and one fine morning.
As we push past Gritty's outstretched hand, the opening image returns, the green light pulsing in the abstract dark. Nick's final words appear as type on the screen.
So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past.
Nick pulls a final page from his typewriter, sets the page on top of his completed manuscript, and we clearly see the title Gritty. Nick considers this and then handwrites The Great. The end. Oh, fuck.
Thank you, everybody. The Great Gritty.
Oh, God.
Thank you. Thank you to Jenny. As well, those masks I can personally tell are very hot, so I and made a flannel, so I appreciate her. Thank you to our cast, Jeff and Genevieve and Andy and Brian for reading the stage directions. That has been the Great Gritty. I guess thank you, Baz Luhrmann, for the script that we read today. Yeah, and thank you, Gritty, for being alive in all of our hearts.
Long live Gritty.
Long live Gritty.
The Great Gritty.
The Great Gritty.
It's the way that you know what I thought I knew. It's the beat in my heart skips when I'm with you. But I still don't understand.